another guy that lives by water. He lives down in San Francisco, I believe. His name's Mike Brandvold. He's a digital marketing specialist. We call him the grand poobah of marketing here, because he's done. He's done. Do you remember the grand poobah from the Flintstones?
Yep.
You're the grand poobah, buddy.
And a new camera angle too, showing off all the hardware in the back.
Yeah, I don't know what changed. I don't know if StreamYard changed something or what here, but yeah, it's like wide angle instead.
I tried something different tonight. So you're talking to two talking heads. Do you notice the difference in our shots here?
Yeah. Well, I'm sitting back and I'm relaxed. I could be.
Now you're a talking head, buddy.
Yeah.
So Michael's talking to the talking heads tonight. All right. And without further ado, the man with the mostest, my buddy Sean McKenna from the podcast Bar Stools and Band Talk, Rim Shots with Sean. Hey, buddy.
Howdy ho.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Oh man, we were talking about some stuff before the show tonight, and we're going to be getting into some of that with Michael tonight. So I'm not going to waste a lot of time with an intro about all that. Our special guest tonight, this guy comes with a great CV. I mean, Michael Brandvold should be a household name, don't you think, Sean?
He's a household name in my household. There's no two ways about that.
Yeah, he's definitely a household name. I mean, with clients like KISS and starting the very first KISS fan website, which morphed into KISS Online, and we can talk about that till the cows come home. And then Michael's done work for artists such as Ozzy Osbourne, Dream Theater, Britney Spears. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Ellen Jackson. I mean, this guy.
He just said an announcement today about Wasp that I'd love to get his 2 cents on.
I see Wasp, and I also see Accept that's joined the roster now as well, too. So very, very cool. Without further well, anytime any outside entity's involved, you never know, things are going to go south, right?
The KISS concert actually made money, but it was just
somebody else took money, is what you're saying.
Maybe. We're not sure.
We're not sure. Probably never find out.
I mean, you see that?
Yeah. Who was that? No,
that's when Rush played my high school in 1974.
Oh my God, Geddy Lee was like 12 years old.
And that was with John Rutsey.
Yeah.
Before Neil Peart. So they played with a band called Barefoot, and did you notice the price of admission? $2.
$2.
$2 Canadian. Yeah. I mean, what's that? What's that? Not even.
That's about
25 cents American.
About $1. Yeah, a quarter.
Yeah.
We work with the Canadian peso up here. That's why.
That is our friend Sean McKenna, who we lost most recently, and has left a big hole for a lot of people, including myself. Sean was a big part of the podcast and was a great contributor to it. He is responsible for introducing me to Mike Brandvold. I will ever be indebted to Sean for introducing me to a lot of different people. And he came to me by way of mutual friends that introduced him to me. So that whole 3 degrees of Kevin Bacon that Sean used to refer to, or as we sometimes say, 3 degrees of separation, is so true. Tonight we got Mike Brandvold on the show. We're going to talk about things, all things music. Hopefully, we'll get some nuggets of wisdom here as well. Talk about Mike's projects, what he's got on the go right now currently. Mike is a digital marketing specialist, and I call him a guru. We called him the Grand Poobah back then. There's a whole lot of different things you could call him, but you will never call him late for dinner, that's for sure. Without further ado, here is my co-host tonight, Mike Brandvold. Hey, Mike.
Hey man, how you doing? I didn't know you were going to run that little montage with Sean, and that put a big smile on my face, man. I mean, what can you say about Sean? I mean, he touched so many people. I mean, he was just, as a musician and as somebody who wanted to help musicians. I mean, they're such a great guy, just such a great guy.
Yeah, he touched so many people's lives, and like I said, I'll forever be indebted to him for introducing me to so many great people, including yourself. I was that was why I was late getting on tonight too, because I was going through all those videos that you and he and I did back in the day when you first came on the show, and you I think the first time you were on the show was well over a year ago.
Yeah, it's probably been at least a year. Yeah, there was a number of episodes at the beginning there where it was you, me, and Sean.
Yeah, and we certainly appreciated having you on the show. Your contributions in terms of helping artists who watch the show and people that watch the show understanding a little bit more about the industry. And I don't know if I don't know if I'm even using the right word to call it an industry anymore.
Oh, it's an industry, but I don't know, it's a movement, it's a community, I mean, sort of what Sean was always doing. It's helping other people in this industry out. And not doing it just for money. It's just like, hey, here's some advice. You got a question? He was all about that. He was all about helping people out, and not doing it, as a consultant, and not charging an hourly rate to answer a question.
I think that's one of the reasons that him and I got along so well because, as you know, what I do with the record label is not something that I make a lot of money doing. It's a labor of love. It's about helping people get their music out in front of as many people as we can, and help people discover that there's something else out there in terms of music, and hopefully we scratch that surface and pique people's interest.
You did. Sean definitely did. I only initially knew Sean as a drummer. I had no idea he had all of this other aspirations and desires to help bands with their marketing and promotion as well. And again, it's just couldn't find a better guy who was just all about, what can I do to help? Let me share some advice. Let me ask questions. And um I mean, like everybody, it was such a shock to see the news of his passing. Such
Yeah, I'm
I mean, I remember when I saw a post by somebody made, and I was like, "Oh, that must be a different Sean McKenna. Maybe there's another Sean McKenna that I don't know about out there." Then I saw like two more, and I'm like, "Well, wait a second. Is that the Sean?" And I was just like floored, just floored.
Yeah, I had no idea, that something was lurking. I mean, you just never know. I mean, and none of us know.
Well, that's the thing, stuff like that. Nobody knows until it happens.
The cool thing that I'll always remember about Sean is he lived every day to its fullest, and
Oh
he was
God, yeah. He
always
he was a fan. He was a musician. He was a marketer. He was just always doing something. He was interviewing other artists. He had his podcast. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's just nothing you couldn't. There's nothing to hate about Sean.
No, just a great likable guy, and one of these people, like when I asked him to do the podcast, I knew he was a busy guy, and I guess I kind of went back to that whole thing. If you want to get something done, you always ask a busy person.
Yeah, and
You know,
Sean was one of those guys. He would figure out and take the time and figure out how to do it, and he wasn't asking for stuff in return.
no, and we, like I said, I always said to him, if something comes along and you get really busy, your life, what you're doing in music, because that's how you make your living, that comes first.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that did come. I mean, he was getting to the point where things were getting really, really busy. The podcast had taken off and had done really, really well. He was getting some top-notch guests on his show and getting, some notoriety from doing that. And yeah, I was just so excited for him that he was finally getting to that point where he was hoping to go. And I think it was because something he said on one of the shows that you and I did with him. Remember we talked about goals?
Yeah.
And he said in one of the shows something about he was looking for someone to do some coaching with him, and then he said the guy asked him, "Do you have any goals? What are your goals?" And Sean had to go away and think about it.
Yeah. 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 No, I mean, he set out and accomplished a lot of stuff. You know,
Yeah.
he was a busy person. Like I said, he was a performing musician. He was a fan. He was, a podcast host. He was helping people with their marketing. You know, you you got to admire him. You got to admire everything he set out to do and he accomplished.
And he developed really great relationships with people, and to me that was really, really important in terms of him cultivating those relationships. He had a lot of people supporting him and helping him with what he was doing to get the word out. And I always look forward to some of his posts every day, because there was always something would get people fired up.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, he was always asking. I don't want to say controversial isn't the right word, but he was asking questions that really elicited responses from people on
Yeah, and I
on
think a lot of people
all sides of the topic.
and I think a lot of people were thinking those things.
Yep.
It just takes someone to post about it. Coming around to that, you made a post, it was a few weeks back now, talking about Spotify. And everybody went off on different tangents about it in terms of, how the artist is getting ripped off. That's happening. This is happening. And you were trying to explain to people about how rights work.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it was quite honestly, it was a simple post. I mean, I was having fun with AI, and and I asked AI, I'm like, I can't remember the exact question. I don't have it in front of me. It's like, does Spotify pay the artist? And AI came back with such a great, concise bullet point breakdown that basically said, no, Spotify doesn't pay the artist. Here's who Spotify pays. They pay the rights holder, and the rights holder has to pay the artist. But what I was impressed by is it said, but what the rights holder pays the artist is all dependent upon the contract the artist has with that rights holder, and what their recoupment is, and all this other stuff. And I was like, here you go, people. It's the simple facts. We're not arguing Spotify good or bad. We're just setting straight all of this misinformation that always happens from so many artists and overwhelming number of fans who are like, Spotify doesn't pay artists enough. And it's just like, they don't pay them anything. That's not their job to pay the artist.
yeah,
70% of Spotify's revenue goes straight back to the rights holder. And that's exactly the same as Apple's iTunes. That's the
right.
same for a lot of businesses out there. 70% goes to the rights holder.
And
Now,
in the mainstream world, those rights holders are probably record labels.
well, yeah, well, even for an independent artist, if you sign up with CD Baby or TuneCore, the rights holder is CD Baby and TuneCore. They are you've basically licensed your rights to them so they can release it to everybody else. They're in charge of collecting the money and then paying you your percent based on whatever their agreement is.
Right.
And
And we
and
don't
and, and that
and we don't
that's
know what
all it
they're
comes to. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people can sit here. You could figure out what CD Baby and TuneCore's agreement is because there's no negotiations there. Sometimes it's like they'll keep a percentage or they won't keep anything, but you're paying them a yearly fee. But nobody knows what a record label contract is. No
no.
fan knows what the record label contract is. And sadly, a lot of the artists don't even know what their record label contract says, as evidenced by the fact the artist gets mad that they get such small checks from Spotify. And it's like, well, you don't get mad at Spotify. Go talk to your record label. Why is the digital DSP line item in your quarterly royalty report so small? Ask your record label because they're the ones collecting the money and then turning around, reporting and paying to you.
Yeah, you got
It's just simple. It's just simple facts. You got to ask questions. Got to understand the business. I mean, and yes, we're talking about the music business, but this applies to any business out there. You could be a book author. You could be a restaurant. I don't care who you are. You got to understand your business and how the money flows before you get mad that you're not making any money. Understand how the money is going out and coming in.
Yeah, and it's important for the artist to look at, when you're signing a contract, make sure you're not giving all those rights away, or maybe you're giving those rights away for a good reason because, the label's already paid you for those rights.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just this this is should be a big education for fans who don't understand a lot of this. I mean, yes, there's still artists out there that don't understand that, they don't own the music that a record label released.
Right.
The record label owns that, especially if a record label gave you an advance and paid you money to go record that album. You don't own the songs that were recorded. You own the publishing, which is different. You own the songwriting,
Yep.
but you don't own the physical song that you went into the studio and recorded, gave to a record label, and the record label released it. The record label owns that because they paid you as a contractor to record that. And listen, that's a very generalized statement because obviously contracts can be written a million different ways to give artists ownership or revert rights back to them. But in the general sense, if somebody pays you money to do a job and recording that album is a job, they own the finished work. And they are allowed, again, within the realms of individual contracts, they're allowed to do what they want with that. And you don't have necessarily any say in that matter. So if a record label wants to release that on a greatest hits, but you don't want it, well, they could still do it without your approval.
Right. What would you say to an independent artist in that regard? Because they would have the right, obviously, to own both rights to their music, right? If they've paid to have it recorded themselves.
It's in a sense, it's always best to own your recorded music. Same with publishing. You got two things: who wrote the song, wrote the music, the lyrics, and the recording itself. The long-term revenue could be the publishing. And everybody's always saying, don't sign away your publishing. Because maybe 50 years from now, that song explodes for whatever reason. If you don't own the publishing and you sold it to somebody else for $1,000, they're collecting all the money and you get nothing out of it.
Yeah, or
But
you write a good song. Somebody comes along and wants to re-record your song. You owning the rights to that could be a big thing.
Yeah, you get the money. But owning the actual recordings is also extremely valuable. And, that's why in this day and age, it's always good to pay for your own recordings, record your own music, and then license it to somebody else. And that basically means for a given period of time, you're giving somebody else the rights to that music. 5 years, 10 years, it could be anything. There's no standard terms. It's what you negotiate. And for the terms of that license agreement, that label or that distributor is responsible for releasing it, collecting the monetization from all the different channels, reporting it back to you and paying it to you. But at any given time, you could take your music off CD Baby or TuneCore. It's yours. It's your decision. You can take it off of there and go somewhere else with it. And if you licensed your finished album and recordings to a record label, when the term is over, ownership reverts back to you. Now you own those recordings again, and you could go license them to somebody else.
Right.
Maybe you license to one label for 5 years, terms expire, and you find another label that says, hey, I'd like to re-release this. Okay, I'll license it back to you.
Right. What would you say to the artist that says, who has the idea that Spotify doesn't pay that well, and I'm not going to publish my music on Spotify? What would your advice be to that person?
I think that's a mistake. Spotify is a discovery platform. First and foremost, that's where people find music. But again, you may not have any say in where and how your music is released, depending on your deal. If you're an independent artist and you go through CD Baby, I'll just use them as an example, but all these independents, DistroKid, CD Baby, TuneCore, the same way, you can say where you want your music released to. You could click the one button and says release it to every streaming platform, digital service around the world, or you can go through the checkbox and turn off the ones you don't like. If you sign a record deal, again, maybe you negotiate in your contract that you have the rights to pick and choose how it's released, but generally that doesn't happen. When you sign a record deal, the record company has full control over how that's released. And you can't tell them to not release to Spotify. Maybe if you only sign a physical only deal, where you sign a deal with a label who's only going to release it on compact disc, then that label has no say over your digital releases. But if you give all rights to a record label, the record label now owns and controls all those rights. And you might sit here and go, I hate Spotify. And they're like, we don't care. We're still releasing it on Spotify.
Right. Yeah.
You can't go to them and say, take my music off of Spotify. They're gonna be like, no, we don't have to. It's our music.
Yeah. The downside of not published on Spotify is you've lost half your listening audience or more.
I mean, there's a saying that we like to use in the Music Biz Weekly podcast. Go to where the party is. There's a party on Spotify. There's a lot of people hanging out on Spotify. You could be miserable the rest of your life that you're not making, $1 every time somebody streams it. But that's not even a fair, to even think that's right is just delusional on an artist's part. It's a discovery platform. It's nothing more than the new era's Tower Records. It's your job to drive your fans to Tower Records to buy your CD in the 80s. It's not Tower Records' job to find your fans and introduce them to you.
Right.
And some artists might go, well, how about the bands that get posted at the checkout counter on the end cap displays? Those are all paid for promotions. Your record label is going to Tower Records and saying, we'd like to have this artist's new release displayed on your new release wall. And Tower is going to say, well, here's how much it costs for that
That's right.
space for 1 week, 1 month, whatever. It's real estate. Everything in a record store is purchased real estate, rented real estate. And Spotify's the same way. They're just a retailer. Their job is to be the destination for all music. And they have various options for you, the artist, to pay for better placement within the Spotify world.
Right.
Ad campaigns and all this stuff you can buy within them. But it's not their job to help people find you and discover you as a new artist. It's your job to get the word out there and
Yeah,
tell
and there's
people to go
opportunities.
listen.
There's lots of opportunities within that whole process. One of those things that we found was helpful is when you launch an artist's music, launch it with at least 4 weeks lead time before the go live date, because you have all kinds of time to pitch the song to playlist curators.
Yeah,
And
I mean, there's a lot of marketing and release strategy that goes into it. People are still, especially people who were fans or musicians during the heyday of record stores, the 70s, the 80s, the early part of the 90s. They just look at it as a retail destination for spending money, and it is now a marketing platform.
yeah,
It's a
everything.
marketing platform for tour dates and merchandise and all this other stuff that you can do. It's a marketing platform for your for potential new fans to discover you, because the Spotify, and again, I'm just using Spotify as an example,
Yeah,
but most streaming platforms are the same way. The algorithms are so incredible that they're all based on, well, you listen to this artist a lot, they're
yeah,
in this genre, we think you would like this is Spotify's Discover Weekly playlist that every user on Spotify has a Discover Weekly playlist, and every user's Discover Weekly playlist is different because it's completely generated by an algorithm based on your listening habits, where Spotify goes, we've been tracking everything you've listened and clicked on and viewed, and how long you listen to one artist versus another artist, and based on all of that, the computer's ding, figuring things out behind the
yep,
scenes, going, we think you're going to like this artist. You've never heard of them. They might be new, they might be old. That's the cool thing I love about Discover Weekly is it might be a 40-year-old artist that I never paid attention to 40 years ago. But they're going to go, you might like this. And now I'm going to go, oh, if you say I might like it, there's a reason. So I will listen to that track. And wow, you're right. How did I miss this album from 35 years ago?
yeah. Kyle Alt, who is a drummer with a band, Abad and Zen, those guys are from Wisconsin. He says, "Hey, Michael, thanks for your knowledge."
Anytime, Kyle. I mean, it's as we started off when we were talking about Sean, this is my passion. I just love talking about this stuff. It's a different world for musicians now than it was 20, 30, 40 plus years ago. Completely different. And it's discouraging to see people sit there and go, oh, it was so good back in the day, and why can't we go back to the way it was? And it's like, dude, that's you're wasting oxygen talking about stuff
Yeah,
like that. It's never going to go back. Never, ever going to happen. So you can either, sit on your front porch on your rocking chair and yell at the kids out in the street, tell them how great it used to be in your day, or you can sit here and go, let me understand how the world is today and how I can utilize it to help my career.
yeah. You've got to find a way forward, otherwise you're stuck.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, and again, I'm not saying all musicians are this way. It's generally older musicians, musicians who did come through the era of record companies signing you, giving you big advances,
Right.
and your music, your vinyl, your CD, your cassette tapes were in record stores all over the world.
Well, I like to think that what you and I have to say is valuable because we've lived it. We've lived through all those eras.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I made a post a couple weeks ago. I'm like, I'm never repurchasing my music again. I'm the generation that started with, I didn't own 8 tracks, but I owned vinyl, and then I repurchased everything as cassettes. Then I repurchased everything as compact discs, and then I repurchased everything as MP3s. And it's like, that's it. There's no more formats. I don't give a crap about what your new exciting format is going to be.
Right.
I've repurchased, you know, chunks of my music collection 3, 4, 5 different times. Why do I like streaming? Because I'm never fucking repurchasing the same music again. You're not going to get me into that. And listen, those formats, yes, a lot of those formats were improvements and betterment and convenience, but it was also a way for the record companies to frickin' make money hand over fist, especially
Yeah.
compact discs. Compact discs, that was the big repurchase format. And listen, I'll say it was worth it because it was smaller, it was more convenient, it was a
Yep.
better quality sound,
Yep. Yep.
it didn't skip, it lasted longer. Yeah, I it was 20 plus years ago I got rid of all my thousands of CDs and
Right.
brought them into Amoeba Records and sold them for $2 a disc just to get rid of it because I was like, I'm tired of moving this shit. Every
Yeah.
time I move, it's all digital sound. It's a digital audio file, basically, high quality digital. So I'm just going to live on digital formats. I don't need the physical copy anymore. I
So
got the
so here's
digital file.
so here's an interesting thing, and I want to get branch off into a couple other topics before we get too far into the show. But one of the things that I've noticed now is that there are some platforms like iTunes and Apple Music, for example, that are using lossless platforms now. And for records labels like mine, we upload all of our artists' uh, music in 24-bit wave files. So those are wave masters. So you would never hear that quality of digital even on a CD. This is better than CD quality because
Sure.
it's right from the digital master itself. So if you love music and you love to hear all of the separation and you want a lossless format, iTunes and Apple Music now is offering a lossless format, which means whatever format the music is uploaded in is what you can listen to it in.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, Bandcamp has been around for decades, decades and decades. Bandcamp has always allowed retail sales of MP3, WAV files, lossless, all that stuff. And we know that, you've got Tidal out there, which is a high bit rate streaming service. All of them are talking about going to it, and that's fine. But I'm going to still come back to, that's a small market. That's
Right.
a very
Discovery.
small market. That's an audiophile. Who cares about that? The overwhelming vast majority of music listeners are listening to music with these little white things in their ears,
Right
or
here.
through the speakers on their laptop, or through the speakers in their car. And it's always been uh, a running joke that artists would go into a super expensive recording studio and build and listen to it through these high-end multi-thousand-dollar monitor speakers and incredibly expensive headphones, and then they sell it as an MP3 file because that's what the consumer wants, who listens to it those little white earbuds. And all of that money, time you spent creating an incredible audiophile experience is gone. And I'm not
Right.
saying that's bad. I'm just saying you've got to understand the overwhelming vast majority of music listeners are not audiophiles.
No.
They are not. I mean, it's like talking to people who are, you know, vinyl freaks and only want to listen to music on vinyl albums. Great, go for it. But there's a
Yep.
reason why that's never coming back. Convenience. You
They just
can't
want to hear.
take you
They
can't
just want
take
to
your
hear
vinyl
something.
you can't take your vinyl record to the gym with you and listen to a vinyl record as you're working out. You can't
Right.
do it in your car. You can't do it in the beach. I
Yep.
mean, listen, back in the 70s and 80s, when I was doing nothing but buying vinyl records, what was my habit as a fan? I'd buy the vinyl record at Musicland and I'd buy a blank cassette tape at the same time. What would I do? I'd go
Record
home,
it.
I'd listen to it through my speakers at home. I'd record it on a cassette tape. And then what would I do then? I'd listen to it on my Walkman as I'm out riding my bike, or I'd pop it into my cassette player in my car and listen through the cheap speakers in my car.
Yep.
You know, even back when vinyl was the only real format, people were going to find convenient ways to do it. Because what would I have in my car? I'd have one of those suitcases that you'd open up and it'd have like 48 cassette tapes in there.
Yep.
So you could pick what you were in the mood for. Dude, how do you do that with vinyl records? Oh, you
I
can't do
had that.
that today. You couldn't do that back then.
I had the suitcase full of 8 tracks before the cassettes came out.
And 8 tracks were the same way. It's like it was a convenient format. That's what it was. You know, it may not have been the best audio quality, but as we are so familiar with now, music is about convenience. You
Yep.
know, I'm driving in the car and all of a sudden I get in the mood to listen to this one artist or this one song. Dude, I can just call it up on Spotify and there it is and I'm listening to it. I never owned the vinyl record, but now I can listen to it. So, you know, or you are talking to a friend or listening to radio and this song comes on that you never heard and you absolutely love it and you're like, "Well, I got to see if there's more to this artist." And you jump onto Spotify or Apple Music or your favorite platform, you search and you're like, "Damn, they got 6 albums that came out 30 years ago." And now you're going down that rabbit hole of listening to them. How would you do that in another format, especially today? You couldn't go into a record store. There's so few of them, and what there are not deep in catalog music. I mean, one of my favorite record stores as a kid back in the late 70s, early 80s, growing up in Minnesota, was this chain called Great American Music. And it was literally like walking into a Kmart, except it was all music. It was row after row after row. Here's vinyl, here's cassette tapes, eventually here's CDs, here's rock, here's the pop, the jazz, the R&B section. And I kid you not, you know this if you grew up in the era, you'd go in there and you could spend 3 hours
Yep.
going down the aisle, just looking through every artist, every category, and you'd be like, "Oh, I've never heard that artist. Cool cover. I'm going to give it a shot." I mean, and if you were looking for something, there's a good chance they probably had it back then too.
Yep.
'Cause first of all, back then, 100,000 tracks a day were not being released back in the 70s or 80s. It was a much smaller market of music being released because there were gatekeepers, i.e., record labels, that were deciding what we all were going to listen
Yep.
to. So if you heard something on the radio, there's a good chance you could walk into one of these big mega mart record stores and they'd have it. They'd have that artist in stock. Nowadays, that ain't gonna happen, and most likely they'll go, "Oh, it's in our catalog. We could order it for you and have it for you in 4 days, 5 days." And I'm like, "No, I can go home and find it on Spotify, Apple Music in 10 seconds and be listening to it.
My when I do research, I have someone on the show. So one of the people I had on not long ago was Rick Emmett, and it was his book 10 Telecaster Tales. And in the book, he talks about other artists that were really, really great guitarists, right? And he gave different songs that they played. And as part of my research, but also my curiosity, I went into Spotify and started listening to all these tracks. I discovered some awesome music that I had never
Sure.
considered listening to before.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people who are so adamant against Spotify, I'm like, listen, I have discovered more music, more albums, more bands through Spotify than I ever did through record stores, word of mouth, listening to radio, reading old rock magazines. I'm constantly discovering stuff. But, you know, it's also because I've been using Spotify for over a decade.
Yep,
It's pretty much only been me using it, so the algorithm is 100% me.
yep,
It it's funny when you talk to somebody who's like, "Yeah, well, my Spotify keeps bringing up children's music." I'm like, "You got a young kid at home, don't you? And you let them use your Spotify account?" "Yeah." Well, Spotify doesn't know there's a difference between you and your child
yep,
unless you give your child their own account that they switch into.
yep,
So that's one word of advice just to fans who use Spotify. Don't share your account because if you share your account with somebody else, Spotify just thinks that's you listening to a completely different genre of music, and they're going to keep recommending that to you.
yep.
Keep
Yeah,
your
that
Spotify account solely to your listening habits.
again, the greatest thing that I've discovered about Spotify is that part you talked about discovery, discovery, reach, and engagement. Because now artists are getting people following them on Spotify. So every time they release music now, those followers get notified when something new is coming out.
Yeah, it shows up. Every user also has a playlist called Release Radar.
Yeah,
Everybody on Spotify has Release Radar. Release Radar is also unique to every single person because it's algorithm based, meaning you follow this artist, you listen to this artist, that artist releases some new music, it's going to show up in your weekly Release Radar as a new track. I mean, it's to me it's one of my go-to things every Friday. I open up my Release Radar playlist on Spotify to see what's new. Oh,
right,
I forgot I followed that artist 5 years ago because I love that one album. They've got a new
right,
album. You click this and see if it's reminiscent of the old stuff. I
right.
wouldn't have known that any other way. Spotify told me based on my habits, based on their algorithms. Again, people can hate algorithms all they want, but when they are working and fine-tuned, boy, there's nothing can beat a great algorithm.
Now, there's something really interesting that I've seen the last couple of days, and it's popped up on my YouTube. And of course, I only have so much time to watch stuff, so I'll watch like the first minute or two of the video. And they've been talking about bot playlists, like BOT playlists. Have you been following any of that on YouTube?
Well, not on YouTube, but bots have always been a big problem. I mean, bots are just ways for people outside of Spotify to work the system, to game the system. They're
Yeah, and
using,
the sad part about it is that the latest scam that I'm seeing occurring is you've got these, I don't know whether they're real artists or not. They're making these playlists, putting them on bot playlists, and then adding other familiar artists on those playlists. And then those artists are getting their music pulled off Spotify because it's a bot playlist.
well, yeah, I mean, there's always people in the digital streaming world trying to figure out how to beat the system.
Yeah.
It's a game of whack-a-mole. We've been saying this on my Music Biz Weekly podcast forever. It's a whack-a-mole game. When Spotify was first released, they never anticipated that ever being a problem, so they never built anything in. Well, then all of a sudden somebody figures out, hey, I could break the system by doing this, and I can get all these plays unethically, illegally, whatever. Then Spotify discovers it. They fix their code. They do something to close it down. Then they move on to the next hole they can find and the next hole. And, again, decades ago when Spotify was launched, AI was never a thought. Nobody ever thought, well, we've got to figure out a way to prevent fake bands from releasing fake music and getting all these streams. There was not, nobody even imagined that to be a problem.
Right.
Now it is. Is it a real problem? Sure it is. Will it be addressed and some changes happen? Of course it will. It's an always evolving game, the Spotify and every streaming service out there, because there's going to be unethical people who want to figure out the fastest way to get to 10 million streams
Yep.
so they can make money. They don't give a crap that the music is fake. They don't give a crap it's not a real band. They don't give a crap that they're breaking the system. All they care about is I can break the system for 3 months before somebody catches me, and in the meantime, I'm collecting money.
But they're taking other people down with them. The downside about that is and when that happens, a legitimate artist gets their music yanked, and they're like, there is not even a kangaroo court where you can go and appeal your case and say, wait a minute, I didn't add my music to that bot list.
Yes and no. I literally just this last week had a client have that happen. He got a notice from his independent distributor saying, fraudulent bot streams were discovered on one of your tracks. Didn't tell us the track, didn't tell us the album, and therefore, following the terms of use and the agreement with the streaming services, we had to pull your album off of Spotify. We're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So, I first went to Spotify. Spotify, through their Spotify for Artists backend, has a live chat system for artists to talk to support. I said, hey, this happened. What can you tell me? And they're like, well, I can tell you, yes, the album was pulled down. There's no notes in our system from us as to us flagging it or doing anything of that sort. But it does say your distributor requested the album be pulled down. Okay. So Spotify didn't have anything on their radar about it. It was asked by the distributor to pull it down. So we go to the independent distributor, and I won't name names of who it was.
Yeah.
Finally got somebody, and I'm like, you got to at least explain to us what was the track, what did you discover? Give us the evidence, because they didn't give any evidence other than the email saying, we discovered this and we did this. And I'm like, you got to tell me the track. You got to tell me what happened. And they came back and said, oh, it was this one song that had a large increase in playlist streams. And I'm like, well, we've never marketed that song as a single. We've never done anything to promote that as a single. It was never a primary track off the album.
Yep.
And they're like, okay, we understand. And they even admit right in their email to us, we do understand this could be fraudulent because somebody else did this to you.
Yep.
Somebody else could go spend $250 and say, send 500,000 fake streams to this artist's song.
Yep.
You don't need their account information. You don't need their distributor. You just need the Spotify link to that song. You go to one of these PayPal sites, you say, here's the song. I want 500,000 streams. Here's $250. Boom. Tomorrow morning, boom, went straight up, goes straight down. That's an alarm for everybody. Like, that's not real. And so they acknowledged that and they said, well, okay, because you probably didn't do this, we will reinstate your album this time. If it happens again, we may have to do this again. And so yes, when it happens, you should immediately contact your distributor and start asking questions of them as to what was the track, what happened, provide me evidence of this claim that this happened, because otherwise, and as what they said was, we took this album down initially and you can't ever re-upload it to Spotify. We
Yeah.
wouldn't allow you to re-upload it. Now they only took it down from Spotify. They left it up on all the other platforms.
Yep.
And keep in mind, your distributors do have access to see streaming data.
It's interesting because it can be just as easy as one of these illegitimate artists adding your track to their illegitimate playlist that's a bot playlist, and
Yeah.
that and you
You,
and you
you,
get dinged even though you're completely
you get
100% innocent.
Yeah, now, everybody in the industry has brought up that there's a problem with that.
They got to
We
fix
we
it.
un, we understand you want to get rid of people who are purchasing fake bot streams for their own music. I don't think anybody's arguing that, but the problem is you've got a loophole in your system right now that allows somebody else to do it to you. You don't even know it, and you get penalized for it.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
this is another one of those things that I bet a year from now, that issue will have been adjusted and tweaked a bit, and more fixes made to it. But listen, if this is the world you're going to be playing in, you got to understand there is always going to be somebody trying to break the system
Oh yeah. There's
to
always
their
going to be someone
advantage.
screwing things up.
Yep, and you might get caught in it. It's not Spotify being malicious and saying F you. It's Spotify just going, damn, now we got to go find this hole and plug this hole in the code
Yep.
and put systems in place to prevent this from happening again. That's a constant. And listen, it's not just Spotify and it's not just the music world. I mean, people have been doing that for decades when it comes to email lists and e-commerce websites and social media platforms. There's always somebody out there looking to game the system.
It's even like these phishing emails where you get, and I'm sure you get them all the time, where you get emails from companies and you go, never heard of you, don't know what you're all about, I'm not answering this.
Yeah,
Because
no,
as
I
soon as
mean
I answer it,
that's what it is. I mean, we all could sit here and for 3 months we're getting inundated with spam text messages from the same message over and over and over again. And then all of a sudden they stop. Why do they stop? Because somebody was able to spend the time, close the loophole, and shut them out. But I can guarantee you, those people who found that loophole are just going to go find the next loophole, figure out how to get around it until they get shut down again. They're just playing a numbers game and a money game. They'll collect what money they can for a month, 2 months, 6 months. When it gets shut down, they move on to the next loophole they can find. They collect some more money out of it. Whatever the system is, if there's money to be made, somebody's going to figure out how to take advantage of it.
yeah, they're always going to find a way to take advantage of it. So, Mike, projects you're on these days. What do you what's new and exciting in your world?
Still working with Wasp. They're getting ready to kick off their third and final leg of their European tour for the debut album that they've been playing in its entirety. That starts end of September and goes to end of October. Um, Foghat consistently touring. They're also in 3 days releasing a 50th anniversary reissue of the Fool for the City album with a whole second disc, or whether it's compact or vinyl, of a newly discovered 1975 live show from Chicago, Illinois
The
that
whole
they
show?
found. Yeah, I believe it is the whole show.
Oh wow.
Remastered it. So it's again celebrating Fool for the City. That album came out 50 years ago on September 13th.
Right.
Biohazard's got a new album coming out in October, starting a US tour in October. Busy with Bravewords Records. We've got new albums coming out from Alcatraz in November, Bangalore Choir in October. Still working a new Jack Starr album that's been out for months.
Right. Are you still working with Accept?
Now, I haven't worked with them for 3 or 4 years.
Are they doing anything these days?
Still doing a lot of touring. I mean, they're one of these bands that could tour as long as possible, especially in Europe.
Yeah,
I mean, they're
legacy touring
constantly
has
playing
become a big thing, eh?
huge. I mean, classic legacy metal bands could tour forever in Europe, playing festivals and stuff like that. Tough to do that
Right.
in the US,
Right.
Canada. Um, Europe is easy. South America is actually pretty good touring. It can be exhausting and headaches touring in South America, but there's great audiences in South America for metal.
Right. They love live music down there too, right?
Yep, yep, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So future. What's up next? Anything new? You got any new clients coming your way?
Oh God. Well, Bravewords Records has got new albums coming soon from Crimson Glory, Lillian Axe. Um, those will probably be, I'm guessing, first part of next year, since we're getting to the end. As a record label, your release window by September, your release window is pretty much closed for the rest of this year.
Yeah.
It's because as much as the label might want to release it next week, you got to play with your distributor and what your distributor has available for releases.
Right.
So those will probably be next year. I'm always talking with potential new clients, you know, uh, for whether it's label releases or independent bands that need help with social media or release plans, release strategies. Seems like there's always something going on.
Right. What when you think of release strategy and in closing, what advice would you give to an independent artist who's looking to release an album? Should they release an album if they're a virtual unknown, or should they waterfall release that album?
Generally, you should probably release an album, but release a couple singles in advance of the album. The only reason I say that is if you want to try that path of releasing 6, 7, 8 singles and then finally getting to the album, by the time you get to your fifth or sixth single, you've run out of stuff to talk about. You've run out of story for marketing purposes because every single needs its own marketing campaign behind it, meaning a press release, the story, what are you going to talk about on interviews? And listen, that first single, second single, you're going to get a lot of people interested in you. By the third and fourth and fifth and sixth single, everybody's talked to you and you got nothing new to say. And you will notice as each single goes on and on, you get less and less media interest. Doesn't mean
Right.
the music isn't good.
Right.
It's just they talked to you 6 weeks ago. They talked to you 8 weeks ago. Now you're back again. What are you going to talk about different this time than you did 6 weeks ago? And for most artists, they only got one story, the album. They don't have stories for every single track on the album, which is what you would need to have if you do a waterfall release of more than 2 singles in advance. Artists just that's the big thing. Artists don't realize you got to have a story to market. And we've talked about this before. The new music isn't the story unless you're a mega artist. But for the overwhelming majority of artists out there, the story is not that you just got a new album. What is the story behind the album?
How did it get written?
And how did it get written? How did it get recorded? What was the influence? What did you have to go through to make this happen? That's what people want to talk to you about. And most artists use up that story to promote an album, or maybe one single and a second single. They don't have enough story for a half a dozen singles, 10 singles. It's a challenge. And
So
I'm not
if you're
saying
going
you
to
can't
waterfall
do it.
release, if you're going to waterfall release, then have a story behind each release.
You got to have a story behind each release. Otherwise, why would anybody talk about it?
True
You're going
enough.
to have a video for each release. You're going to have to, you got to think of each single release as its own marketing campaign. And then once you get done with the whole waterfall, and now you're like, now the album is out. Okay. What do you talk about now? You just talked about every track on this album for the
Right.
last 8 months,
Right.
10 months, 12 months.
Right.
You've used up everything. And believe me when I say, after 10 singles, people are tired of hearing from you. Oh boy, they're 8 weeks later, and here's another press release with another track. Please, there's nothing new here. So if you're going to do a waterfall release, you got to plan that out way in advance.
Right.
6 months, 8 months, 12 months before release date, you got to start figuring out what is going to be each single's release strategy and plan. Because, I think most artists are only thinking 30 days in advance, maybe 60 days in advance.
Yeah, you got to go a lot further than that if you're going to do exactly that. Well, listen, we're at the top of the hour. We're at the top of the hour. We should come back to this subject again in terms of releases and get some updates about what you've been doing since this time on the show. We'll have Mike back on the show again. Michael Brandvold, digital marketing specialist from Petaluma, California. Wonderful having you on the show, Michael. Really appreciate
always great to be here.
Awesome to have you. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. That guy there is Michael Brandvold. I'm not. I'm Kenny, and you're not. So this is the Indie Show. Have a good end of your week, everybody.
Take care.